Shout out to Ben. That guy is absolutely insane. But your Giga Chad, like POE veteran players looking at that and thinking like, God, I wish I could just, blast through Giga Juiced maps that I crafted in my hideout without having to like do any of this extra shit on top. Like I just wanna juice the maps in my hideout. I want to juice 150,000 of them at once, and then I want to go run 150,000 maps back to back to back, and that's gonna be that. I've got a cat trying to get in my lap. Oh my goodness. I don't hate towers. I'll just say that. Okay. This video is going to be called The Ups and Downs of PoE 2 by Ben. Make sure to come over here, hit subscribe to him as well. This is his original video. I'm just going to be reacting to it. Let's see what he has to say about PoE 2.
I don't feel like I have the energy right now, but whenever I do want to actually give a proper PoE 2 talk, I can give you a preview of what the first 5 words are going to be. I don't understand why PoE 2 exists. That's where it started. You know what? Maybe I do have the energy. Maybe I do. The original scope for PoE 2 was new campaign, new class, new ascendancies, new gems, and a new gem system, right? That was the original scope, but shared endgame. And when we think about PoE 2, what is good, it is exclusively the thing.
Was that exactly the full scope? I thought they also wanted to do a lot of different stuff with combat. They wanted the combat to be a lot different, and they wanted the game to be a lot slower paced, but maybe he said something about that and I just kind of missed it. Another thing to keep in mind is that Ben is the best PoE player ever. Okay, fair enough. That is fair. Yeah, and I've heard stuff about that before too, that Ben is just goated, he is a beast. And is playing a different game. So yeah, that's something worth keeping in mind. But yeah, I thought they said some stuff about they wanted the game to feel different as well. The actual pace, the combat, not just a new class, etc., etc.
Things that I just said. It's the campaign. The one single thing that PoE 2 actually does better than the first game is the new player experience in the campaign. It is so much fucking better. This game's campaign experience is fucking dog shit if you don't know what's happening. Vendors use 9 different currencies to buy things, gems, or 9 different currencies. It sucks.
That is really true. Whereas no gold in PoE 1.
The uncut skill gems and the vendors all being gold, it's so much easier to follow and understand what's happening. The hand holding of the gem system for recommended stuff, even though often it's not the best, is way better than here's a window with 95 gems in it, good fucking luck. The way the game kind of pushes you into these archetypes of lightning versus whatever else, it all kind of it's just way easier. The game is way easier to play if you don't know what's happening. And that's really good. And the moment you leave Act 3, or really Act 6 maybe, and start mapping, it just is bad. If I think about every single change from the first game to the second game, I almost can't think of a single positive change when it comes to actual in-game content. The change from killing a map boss to killing all rares, who wants that? Every time I hit tab and scroll through a map trying to find the rare that's hiding in the corner to kill to get progress, it's just bad. The map bosses aren't in every map. Why? Map bosses are cool. They're fun.
I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and I didn't really experience it when it was really bad before they made some changes to how quickly the little yellow indicators would show up on your map. But I've never actually had an issue with just killing all the rares. Maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 maps I have to backtrack a reasonable amount, but even then it's it just feels super rare that I actually have that issue. And maybe that's just because the way I move around the map and I'm kind of clearing everything, but I seldomly actually have that issue, but I've heard that that's an extreme pain point for other players.
Fun. Why can I go an hour without fighting one sometimes? It just makes no sense. Towers? Jesus Christ. Sections got depreciated because they were tedious, and sections are 1,000 times better than towers.
I've got a cat trying to get in my lap. Oh my goodness. I don't hate towers. I'll just say that. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate towers. in their current state. They feel pretty quick. You put a tablet in the tower, the maps around the tower get giga juiced. That feels pretty good.
Layouts are so dog shit that players want checkpoints. That needs to be like a complete redesign of how layouts work. It's like, how are 80% of layouts like unrunnable? Like fucking Mire, like Augury, the way loot works in the end game, 95% of all items drop from rare monsters. Every single trash monster, there's no reason to kill it except for experience. It won't drop loot. It will never drop an item that matters. And like the breach problem as well.
Towers are insanely tedious. They make sextants look fun, and sextants were tedious. Interesting. But how are they so tedious? Like, you literally just, you run a map that takes like 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes, give or take, and then you're out, and then you just plug the tablet. I mean, I guess that is tedious to like PoE 1 veterans though. Because maybe sextants were just something that, you know, from what I remember, sextants were, you know, you didn't go into a map or anything. You just plugged them into maps, and you basically increased the value of the maps externally. So it's probably very, very quick. But
like 90% of all loot comes from breaches. And like so much of the shit is like, oh, you can hand me the way with, oh, it's early access. But is it really? Like, I mean, to me, when I hear like early access / beta, what I think is this is an unfinished game that's going to be changed a lot constantly. It's been 2 months. What's changed? Like, what's fucking changed?
I do agree with him that probably 90% of loot does come from breaches. That's probably pretty true. And if you're not like, if you don't have your breach tree filled out and you're not like juicing your maps and then doing breach maps, the amount of loot you're getting relative to doing that is dog shit. But then when you're doing that, you're getting a ton. It's the entire setup process of pre-clearing an area, then doing the towers, and then clearing the bad maps. Yeah, I guess that's fair. That's fair for the people that are doing all of that, but to be fair, I think most people aren't doing that. I think most people aren't like clearing the bad maps and then dropping the tablets. They're probably just like, oh, there's a set of like 5 towers right here that are like all pretty close to each other. I'm just gonna like do the shortest path between them, get the towers really quick, plug the tablets into the towers, and then I'm just gonna like do all the maps in the area. Which obviously is not the most efficient way to do it, but I would imagine that's what the vast, vast majority of people are doing.
There's not even balance changes happening until resets come out, like with new leagues, as if it's a fully released game. I don't fucking get it, man. I don't get it. If PoE 2 stayed with its original scope of new campaign, new gym system, shared endgame, God, it would have been so fucking sick. But like that.
But see, this take to me seems interesting because if they had a shared end game, why would it even be PoE 2? Like, I think most people would agree campaign is cool and all, but when you're playing an ARPG, you're not typically playing it for the campaign. If you were, you'd probably just be playing a single player game that was not an ARPG. You're playing it for the end game primarily, and if it's going to have a shared end game, why not just like reskin PoE 1? Why not just redo the campaign of PoE 1? Or, you know, redo the gem system of PoE 1? Why? And just do it with league mechanics. Like, one league, you revamp the skill gem system. One league, you revamp the campaign. To me, at that point, what would even be the point of doing PoE 2? I wouldn't really understand. I feel like from my perspective, and this is not from the perspective of like maybe the developers who had their own specific scope, but when I think about like one of the most beautiful things about PoE 2, it's the fact that the end game is not shared and that all of the league mechanics from PoE 1, like all of the bloat, like the last time I played PoE 1, a couple months before PoE 2 came out, like looking at a build, and they're, you know, in the build it explains how to like deterministically craft an item for the build, and it's like you need to get, God, I can't remember, but you need to get like an item that has like one of those stats that is like locked, like the locked stat. I can't remember what those are called right now. Then you need to get like fossils and like you need to like there's like a million different steps with the end game of PoE 1 because there's so many freaking mechanics. And if you're not one of the people that's played like every single league and been there as it's built up, then trying to go back to PoE 1 feels like you're just getting bent over backwards and being given a lobotomy. So I feel like it's, from my perspective, like cutting off 80 to 90% of the league mechanics, keeping a fair bit of the good ones like Breach. Whether or not you want to say Ritual and Expedition or all the other ones are good mechanics, I think most people definitely like Breach. I kind of like Ritual. I kind of like Expedition. I'm kind of sad to not see Blight. Honestly, I think Blight was really fun. I don't know if that's a controversial take or not, but I kind of like the tower defense. And there's just not so much going on. So I think if they had a shared end game, it'd be cooked, because then it'd be like there's already so much bloat, and they're just going to be adding more bloat as time goes on.
That end game, it's not even like, oh,
Unless I don't understand what he means by shared end game, I'll just say that. Maybe he means something different, but
just needs time to cook. It's just like every single change feels like it's just a change because it needed to be different than the first game. But I don't understand how it's better. And the phrase meaningful combat, I swear to God, I've heard the phrase meaningful combat 100 times in the last like 2 years. Yeoooo 2 has the most meaningless combat of any single RPG I've ever played. It doesn't exist. There is no combat. Every single build, you use one button, you right click.
that's crazy. That is just crazy. Like, sure, this guy is the best player in the game, but that is a crazy take. That might just be his own perspective of it, but you would think when he's talking about this that he would be trying to describe it from not only his perspective, but the average player's perspective. And an average player, if you put them through PoE 1 campaign and then put them through the PoE 2 campaign and then put them through the D3 campaign and then the D4 campaign, 99% of those people will tell you that the PoE 2 campaign had the most engaging combat of any ARPG they've ever played. Like, hands down. Last Epoch as well, D2, it doesn't matter. Like, the first boss, or the first final act boss in PoE 2 campaign, Count Geonor, literally feels like you are in a Dark Souls game. Like, if you don't dodge a mechanic, you get one shot. Like, when he goes up into the sky and then drops down in doggy form, if you don't dodge it, you're dead. If you get hit by the little laser ice spikes, you die. And like, being able to dodge roll around and having the right timing for all of that stuff, certainly the most engaging combat that I've, like, most meaningful or engaging combat that I've experienced from any ARPG. Hands down, it's not even close. Obviously, as you progress and you get stronger with certain builds, you can just nuke the bosses to where you don't experience any of that. But that doesn't mean it's not there. Like, it is there. They just have to crank the tuning on the bosses a bit, so that way, or they either have to, lower the build strength, or they have to increase the strength of the bosses, so that way it actually presents itself throughout the entire campaign.
Like, when it comes to how a character functions in ARPGs, there's like 3 categories. There's defense, offense, and speed. And this game, you are constantly being just like thrown into scenarios where you're choosing one of the 3. And anytime you choose one, the other 2 suffer a little bit. In PoE 2, it took me like, by level 90, like my Titan would right click and one shot the whole screen. And from that point forward, there's nothing that I could ever do to improve the character. I could play for 1,000 hours, it would never get better. Unless I like migrated to Trade League and bought Temporalis, because there's no way to invest in speed except one dumbass unique item. Oh, I didn't even talk about crafting. Holy shit. That was like...
That is an interesting, like a very interesting point. Speed. And I can see how what he's saying would be an issue for the longevity of each league. Like the length in which most players keep playing from the start of the league, you know, whether they're going to play for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months. Like if you can't scale your speed, and I've definitely felt kind of what he's saying, where you get to a point where you're kind of one-shotting everything in like T15 delirious maps or whatever, and you can like go kill, you know, the highest tier of a pinnacle boss very quickly. You don't even really see their mechanics, and you could progress your character further. Like you could speed up the rate at which you kill the pinnacle boss, or you could improve your defensive capabilities, but there's not like a large amount of character progression past that point that wouldn't just be considered overkill. Like you could probably, most of the builds in PoE 1, you could probably spend 5 to 10 divine orbs and pretty much be chilling. Like the amount of power you'll gain from your first like power, whether you want to consider that offense, defense, or speed, most of the power you're going to gain is going to be from the first 5 to 10 divine orbs. And everything after that is going to feel marginally different in comparison to what you got from those first 5 to 10 divine orbs. So I can definitely see what he's saying about that.
Like a 10-minute rant. I didn't talk about crafting. My god. Gear acquisition. What the fuck? Do I need to? I don't know if I even want to bother. Like, fuck me. Long before PoE 2 came out, we had to talk about why other ARPGs suck compared to Path of Exile 1. Like, one defining factor that was super important to me. If the only way to get gear is to kill a monster and hope it drops a good item, that's really bad. That's really, really, really bad. And that was like D3's problem. That kind of became D4's problem as well. Like, that's not interesting. And PoE 1 has like 8 systems that are, you know, that all are good at their own individual crafting thing. Like essences, harvest, delve, metacrafting, scour out being all things accommodating right now. Like there's so many different things and they're all good for different items. And then also in the early game, like day 1, day 2, first 20, 30 hours, like you wear shit you ID'd off the ground. Like that has a place too, but it just gets outscaled, which I think is good. Every single map that I run in PoE 2, I have to pick up every single base type of every single item that I could ever wear, put them all in a quad tab, and then eventually when I get enough, I alch them all, / like augment, transmute, regal, whatever, and then 3-to-1 them in the most like tedious fucking clunky way ever. Like the 3-to-1 thing, instead of being a vendor, like the whole vendoring getting split up into like 6 different systems is one of those changes that's the exact same as the well. It is thematically good.
I mean, I don't know. I'm a trade league player, so like item acquisition to me is like not even really a thought that crosses my mind because I just buy every single item I use pretty much off of trade. I can't actually remember the last time I picked up an item and was like, oh yeah, this is good for my build, or not that, because I've picked up items and thought, oh, this is good for builds or good for my build, but I can't remember the last time I've picked up an item and thought this is better than what I'm currently wearing for my build, or that it wouldn't just make sense for me to sell the item for some amount of currency and then use that currency to just buy items for my build. From an SSF perspective, which I just don't have, I can imagine that what he's saying is extremely true. So yeah, and if you're a profit crafter like you're saying, Cocaine Cutie, I could also see that being true. Because there's probably just way less ways to actually do that, and I don't do that at all. Like I just, the way I make my currency in PoE 2 currently is I pick it up off the ground, and very rarely do I find an item that is actually good. It either has good stats of whatever mods it currently has, and then I slam it with, you know, a regal, or just if it's already rare, I slam it with exalted, and then if it continues to be good, then I sell it. And occasionally I found items that are just good off the ground. Like I pick an item up, it's got 6 mods, sells for a divine orb. It happened a couple days ago, and that felt good. And I do think that obviously having more ways to profit craft is going to be good, but I think those are obviously going to come. I don't think there's any shadow of a doubt in my mind or most people's minds that there's going to be more ways to craft in the future. Like undoubtedly, there's just zero shot that I would say even by the time the game comes out, there'll probably be multiple more ways to actually craft items.
It makes sense in universe, lore wise, it's good. But when I'm playing the game, I don't care about that. I care about fun. And if I want to turn 21 necrotic armors into 7 rare necrotic armors, I'd rather just vendor all of them at once. I mean, necrotic armors you can't do because, you know, they don't really fit in the window. But like with smaller things, like if I have 40 breach rings, I could just vendor 40 of them and get back like 16 rares. But instead, it's like I'm gonna spend 2 minutes doing a little 3-to-1 fucking thing with an animation. It's like cool, it looks cool, lore, themes, cool, but like it's so tedious. Tedious is like the key word for everything regarding the endgame mapping and whatnot. Like I do a map, I leave, I scrap certain things based on if they have quality or sockets. I maybe disenchant if I need Regal Shards, I vendor if not, but only vendor bad bases that I picked up. Good bases have to go into a certain quad tab, and there's no affinities for any of this, and there never will be because you can't really set them up that way. And then you go back to your main quad tab to dump in all of your other shit, and it's like there's just like so much shit. Like one of the best back to your a certain quad tab, but only vendor bad bases. A map, I leave, I scrap certain things based on if they have quality or sockets. I maybe disenchant if I need Regal Shards, I vendor if not, but only vendor bad bases that I picked up. Good bases have to go into a certain quad tab, and there's no affinities for any of this, and there never will be because you can't really set them up that way. And then you go back to your main quad tab to dump in all of your other shit, and it's like there's just like so much shit.
I can kind of see what he's saying, but it's like, I guess if you're playing hardcore SSF, you need to worry about all of the things he's saying. But if you're playing in Trade League, eventually you just get to a point where it's like, you don't pick up half the shit he's talking about. You don't pick up bad bases. You don't pick up items that you need to salvage. So like you're pretty much, you get to a certain point where the only thing you're picking up is either items that are good bases, like, you know, gold rings, amethyst rings, like certain rings, amulets, items that are unidentified with a tier, or currency. Unless I'm missing something, I feel like that's pretty much all I pick up and all I could think of to pick up. Like typically I'm not picking up random stuff that just gets sold or disenchanted by the vendor. If anything is getting sold or disenchanted to the vendor, I picked it up for a reason, like it's got a good base or it's a tiered item. But I'm never just picking up like random stuff, I guess, or like random rares that aren't tiered. I don't even pick up good base rares unless they're tiered, to be honest. Okay, I'm listening but not commenting. Let me see if I understand this. POE 2 player that plays POE 2 for a living is complaining about end is bad when he has like 10k hours on the game. Well, he probably doesn't have 10k hours on POE 2, and he plays POE. I think he plays POE or POE 1 for a living, I would say. But I maybe see your point. Like this happens in a lot of other games too, where the people that play games for a much longer period of time than the average player will start to notice and have issues with things that the average player wouldn't have. So we talked about this earlier with the towers. Like your average player is probably not looking at towers and thinking, oh my god, this is so tedious. Like I have to do these 5 towers and then put the tablets in them. Your average player is probably thinking like, oh shit, there's a pack of 5 towers over there. I can go get those cleared really quick, slam tablets in them, and I'm going to have like a bunch of juiced maps to do. But your Giga Chad, like POE veteran player is looking at that and thinking like, God, I wish I could just, you know, blast through Giga juiced maps that I crafted in my hideout without having to like do any of this extra shit on top. Like I just want to juice the maps in my hideout. I want to juice 150,000 of them at once, and then I want to go run 150,000 maps back to back to back, and that's gonna be that. But I think your average player is not looking at it that way.
Best thing,
or your average POE 2 player is not looking at it that way.
It's about what it wants to be. That's where I feel like the gem system currently is. I feel like the gem system doesn't know what it wants to be. Because originally, gems were going to be not damage multipliers. Like, supports were not going to be damage multipliers. But then they made them damage multipliers, and then they added a 1 support gem limit, which just feels really weird. Like, I don't like it at all, where it currently is. I feel like either of the other options are better than what it currently is. It's in this like weird like halfway point where like making it so there's no damage multipliers on supports and it's all utility could be a thing that could feel good if it was done right. And just keeping the POE system of like your supports just make you do more damage also obviously feels good. We've been using it for 12 years. It's been good. But this current in-between thing just creates these really annoying scenarios where I want to use multiple active skills and I can't because there aren't support gems for it. Like I'm sitting there on a 5 link and getting a 6 link wouldn't matter because there's not a support gem that works that actually helps me. And it's like, that feels really weird. And maybe as they add more active gems to the game, that'll be better if they also add more supports. But like, I don't know if they will. We'll see if they will. Oh shit.
I mean, this is kind of a weird take because of course they will. Like, you can literally look in the skill gem tab of POE 2 right now and you can see there's multiple blanked out squares that say coming soon. So I mean, certainly they're gonna add more gems. I mean, not to mention there's however many classes remaining. I think 6. Is it 6? Yeah, I think there's 6 additional classes yet to come out, and by the end of it all, we're gonna have 36 total ascendancies. Currently, there's only 12 ascendancies, so we're gonna have at least like, or roughly 3x the number of active gems, give or take. Maybe not that many. But there's going to be a lot more active gems, of course, and I would imagine there's going to be a lot more support gems as well. So I don't know.
The mana cost. Wait, I'm not even going to bother. I'm not going to bother. The funniest
the
thing
was the mana cost, I already know he's probably going to say it's shit, but I completely agree with whatever he's about to say about the mana cost, probably.
Miss Bitchy and Guild Chat, he got like an insane weapon. Super good weapon, like fucking 700 top end plus 7, and his Hammer of the Gods costs more mana than his character had. Oh, fuck. Maybe in 5 years. I just want quarterly updates for this game. And maybe port back the gem system, but without the 1 support gem on it. Because like that's genuinely the thing that I've been most excited for since fucking 2020 when they announced that shit. Like, that gem system has so much more potential than this one does. I don't like its current, like, the way it currently works, but like, it could be so good, especially in the campaign. Like, God, dude, gems in the campaign are so fucking bad in Path of Exile 1. Like, you just wear, like, your Act 1 3 link for 4 acts, then you wear your Act 3 4 link for 10 acts, because, like, you don't have currency manipulating tools for your sockets until you're in maps, and it's, like, it's so dog shit in the campaign. Like, that gem system plus new ascendancies, what a beautiful world it could have been. I don't like the investment you have to do on a single gem in PoE 2. So one thing that feels kind of weird about that right now,
I'll just say, it's probably my second least favorite thing about PoE 1 is the way that gems are socketed into your gear. I hate the way the colors work. I hate the linking. I hate that shit. There's 3 currencies specifically tied to it. You need 1, the Jeweler's Orb to get your freaking sockets. Then you need the Chromatic Orb to change the colors. And then you need the Fusing Orb to actually create the links. Like, dear God, help me. Like, I get it. I'm not, a god PoE gamer, obviously, but that shit is so cooked. Like, especially from a new player experience, it is unbelievably cooked. But even from a relatively experienced PoE player's experience or perspective, it's still cooked. Like, it is so annoying.
Right now, it feels like the drop rate and the whole way the gem system works would make more sense if you instead 6-linked your character slot, not the gem itself. But the problem with that is you can't trade that. So like as soon as you consume that thing, you can't trade it, which I'm pretty sure is why it doesn't work that way. Consumable. Yeah, but like things being tradable is very important to them. It always has been. Like you make a good item, you can then trade it later. You 6-link that item, you can still trade it later. So like the gem itself being the thing that gets 6-linked makes sense because then you can trade it later if you want to. But the downside of that is like the ability to test different skills is kind of limited as soon as you're in the end game, because if you 5-link a skill and you kind of like are like, wait, now I want to test this other one that's thematically similar but not quite the same. In this game you can just swap your gems and your thing, but in that game you can't because like the gem itself is the 5-link. I don't really know if that's a bad thing though, but I also generally play the game with pretty, like, I plan out everything I'm gonna do very far in advance, so like I don't really run into the negatives of that. I feel like in the campaign you can easily like test 3-links and 4-links constantly and test new skills, and by the time you get a 5-link you should like kind of know what you want, I guess. I don't know. But if you 5-link a shit skill, can it actually sell? I haven't looked at trade markets and whatnot. And can essences please drop 100 rarity mapping views, 1 per per 2 days? I did 100 rarity mapping for like 10 days playtime and didn't drop a single one. I actually had the 154 rarity for 10 days playtime farming breach with rares. I got 1 perfect 6-link on like day 2 on a no rarity character, and I got my last one like a day before I stopped playing. But I think that was just unlucky. Like most people that I saw had better RNG there. Like fucking Alk rolled hardcore self and had 2 in like a day, and he's just better. Oh, also one other good thing to talk about instead of only talking about the bad things, the breach boss is fucking sick. That boss is really good. And Arbiter phase 2 is pretty sick too. I'm so surprised by how little changes are happening though. Like that's the thing that really stands out to me. For an EA game, like there's just like so little being changed. I feel like they're afraid to nerf things because they know when they fix the current broken ass builds, people are gonna be mad. But you gotta rip the band-aid off. I don't think waiting is good. Like when they do the reset, it's gonna, or like when they do the nerfs, it's gonna be with an economy reset, which is like obviously the ideal solution for a finished game. That's how it always should be in a finished game. But I just feel like first impressions of like how a game plays is like really important. And if you just leave it for, I mean, we're coming up on 2 months and we don't even have a date yet for Druid Huntress. So like, is it gonna be 3 months before the first reset? And if so, like 3 months of combat being like what I have to assume.
Kind of agree with what he's saying here. I'm a little surprised by like GGG came out the gates really, really heavy at the beginning of early access with a couple of banger patches to fix and like remedy some really bad situations like the currency drops and the checkpoints. The rate at which or how many monsters are left until you see like the rare icons on your maps. But then since then it's been like kind of dark. It even took them like no map tab is crazy, right? Like everybody can agree no map tab is actually insane. Like I think it was insane that the map tab wasn't there on launch, to be perfectly honest. I don't understand why it wasn't. Like if you're going to put the breach tab in, you're going to put the currency tab in, or let me rephrase that. Currency tab, obviously. Gem tab, obviously. But if you're going to put the breach and the delirium tab in the game, but not the map tab, and the essence tab, like essence, breach, delirium got prio over maps? Who thought that was the play? I mean, that's crazy. Like, that's a rare miss from GGG, 100%. And even, like, the runes, like, being able to swap the runes, I felt like that took quite a while for them to change from, I think it was pretty obvious to see that, that shouldn't have been how it worked to begin with. It goes against the premise they had of, getting rid of the gem sockets on gear, like being able to actually change shit relatively easily. But then you have runes and you can't change them, etc., etc. So,
is nowhere near where they want it to be. There's no way they're happy with the current combat in POE 2. It's not even just Herald of Ice though. Like that's a big one, but like even non-Herald builds kind of do the same thing. Like Galvanic Arrow does the same thing. Lightning Arrow without Herald of Ice can do the same thing. It's a little bit weaker, but just like the general, like I just like they talked so much about combos, about like you're gonna use multiple skills in PoE 2, and I haven't even come close. Like I haven't played a single build that uses even half the amount of skills that Path of Exile 1 uses. And I played every single archetype. Like I think the build that I play that has the most character input in terms of like you press buttons to kill monsters is Spark, which is like historically kind of considered to be a non-interactive playstyle. Like you just press a button and the whole screen gets covered in proj, but somehow Spark, from like a character input point of view, has been the most engaging combat of any of the, or like the most engaging while still being fun combat. Because it's pretty fucking engaging to get.
It's kind of interesting to me. I mean, it's evident that me and him have like different perspectives on this topic, like the number of buttons you should be pressing and like what's engaging and what's fun. Because to me, when I think of ARPGs and, you know, Path of Exile, Diablo, etc., I'm someone who likes to go for like the one button builds. Like, I mean, obviously they're made for a reason because there are people that like them, and I happen to be one of those people. And it's like, if I wanted to play a game where I had a lot of different buttons to press and I needed to press them all in the right order, otherwise my DPS was going to be shit, I would go play WoW. Or like I would play an MMORPG where I'm like parsing against other players and I can like compete, you know, on a DPS meter. I wouldn't play PoE for that. Like in my head, when I'm playing PoE 1, I want a one button build where I can load into the game, do whatever end game content I happen to want to do at that time, run around, press 1 to 2 buttons, and, you know, see stuff explode and then pick up the goodies. And like I want to relax while I'm doing it. Obviously, in some cases, like especially when it comes to big bosses, I want to be engaged and I want to like actually have to, you know, focus up. But when I'm just mapping, I don't really want to have to be like, you know, fucking locked into this bitch. You know, I'm about to fucking, you know, smurf my ass off or whatever just to do the map. So we obviously just have different perspectives on that, but I think to each their own type of thing. Ben is a world first raider, by the way. Sheesh, this guy is a beast at everything. Yeah, I wasn't a world first raider, but I was a mythic raider in WoW. I love WoW. Like, I mean, I do love that. Like, there's a place in my heart for rotations and having a lot of different buttons with a lot of different hotkeys. You know, shift, you know, Q, shift Q, control Q, alt Q, all different freaking keybinds on my hotbar, right? But I just wouldn't say that I want that in PoE. You know, like I want that in WoW, not in PoE. I don't mind more than one button builds for sure. Like, you know, if you want to play a build that's 2, 3, 4, 5 buttons, that's your prerogative. But I think there should be a place for lower button builds in these types of games. At least a place for them. Doesn't need to be the main thing, but I think there should be a place for them.
Your shit pushed in by trash monsters that can push you across the screen whenever they want on a melee character that can't kill anything. It's pretty engaging, it's just not fun. Didn't play minions. I did play minions until Act 3. I played minions until Act 3, learned that when if you outrange them, they despawn and logged out. But they fixed that, apparently, so I might try again soon. When they add specters, maybe I'll try minions again. We'll see. 326 when? How long does this go on YouTube? I don't know. I normally, like, the reason it's taking me like 2 months to really put it all into words is because I really don't like being negative. I want to enjoy things, but like, goddamn. And I just wanted to like wait, you know, and give them time to cook, time to change things and fix things, but it's been 2 fucking months, so who knows? Who knows? At least Path of Exile 1 still exists and is in a really good state.
I'll also just say, like, just staring at it for a second here
really
at the end.
Put it all into words.
If you if you weren't a PoE player, you would have literally no clue what is happening on screen right now. But like, thankfully, I've played enough PoE to where I kind of know what's happening. I know he's playing a mine build, and he has that support on the mines, that makes them have like projectiles that home in or whatever. I don't know if this is a Locust Mines build or not. It kind of looks like a Locust Mines build to me. That's what it reminds me of anyways. I don't know if that's what it is. It's just what it reminds me of. But like, if you weren't a PoE player, you cannot tell me you'd have any remote fucking clue what is happening on his screen right now. Like, just wanted to point that out. I feel like that is,
goddamn. And I just wanted
you
to,
know,
like,
kind of like something worth noting.
Change things and fix things, but it's been 2 fucking months.
Whereas at least in PoE 2 right now, even if you're not a PoE player, you can kind of see what's happening. Like you have an idea of what's going on. I feel like, at least, like, you're not blinking around. Oh, Power Siphon Mines. That's what I'm thinking. Is the Locust Mines the support, maybe? Is that the support gem? maybe I'm tripping still, but yeah, power siphon mines. That's what I was thinking of. Power siphon mines. Um, maybe locust mines as a support. Like I said, I don't know, but yeah. But if I hadn't played POE 1 before, I'd have no clue what's happening on this guy's screen at the moment. Like I would think he's playing like a freaking mobile game or some shit. Like it looks so crazy.
Who knows? Who knows? At least Path of Exile 1 still exists and is in a really good state.
Alrighty though, that is Ben's thoughts on PoE 2. Yeah, I feel like I got pretty much everything out that I needed or wanted to or needed to get out during his video. Maybe like some final thoughts would just be that I think it's hard for me to really understand his perspective because in some cases it sounds like he's trying to come from a more average player's perspective, but then most of the time it seems like he's coming from his own perspective. But like when he talks about the skill gems and how the new skill gem system is way better for like, you know, just quality of life and et cetera, like it's so much easier in the campaign and it's more fluid, etc. To me, that seems like he's coming from a new player experience or just an average player experience, because if you're a god PoE gamer, like that shit probably doesn't really phase you that much in PoE 1. You kind of just you've got it down. Like the skill, the gem links and everything like that shouldn't be that much of an issue for you. But then most of the time it seems like he's coming at it from the perspective of like a number one in the world, or, you know, a top 1% player perspective. And I think it's evident that PoE 2 is very much trying to do something different. Like they're trying to appeal to almost everybody. Like I've had like 80-year-olds in my YouTube comments and like join my Discord saying they're playing the game and like they're having fun, they're getting through the campaign, they're understanding what's going on, they're figuring it out. But that shit is not happening in PoE 1 right now. Like I promise you, you're not sitting an 80-year-old down and making them understand PoE 1. Like it is not happening. And last but not least, take it easy, chefs.
Watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away.